Hi, everybody, and welcome to the April series of the IT Academy webinars. My name is Jennifer Metcalf. I'm sure you know me by now, and Melissa Leonard is with me as well. Today we're going to talk about certification preparation before and after the test. If you have any questions, all you need to do is type them into the box and we will answer them as we go along. We wanted to start out today by just quickly going over some of the test-taking tips that we talked about last time, because we know that a lot of you are testing soon, very soon, so we're going to start with that, and then we'll move into some other newer things. So let's take a look here at the helpful test-taking tips for 2010 and 2013. And remember, if you have any questions, just let us know, and that's why we're here, is for you. Okay, so right here you can see where we put the certification exam objectives and where you can find them. The exam resource mapping on the OneDrive and also the MOAC book. You would want to take a look at these and make sure you're covering all of these before the certifications based on the different software. Okay, so these are some of the test-taking tips that we thought were important for you, and we've covered a little bit about them, but we're going to talk a little bit more in depth today.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Jennifer, can you get your screen to see what's being shown?
Screen, but I cannot see your screen.
Can you now?
I can now, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's start out with test-taking tips for 2010 and 2013. Now remember, both of these tests are 50 minutes long. However, 2010 is different, very different from 2013. So I'm going to give you some tips for both of the versions. We're going to start with 2010. Right here you can see a sample question from Office 2010. And in 2010, the Microsoft Office Specialist exam will launch in an application. So if you were taking the Word exam, it would actually launch in Word. So the questions on the test will simulate what you would accomplish in the given application. So there's individual tasks or questions that the test taker has to complete. For example, down there you can see it says, find all the occurrences of the text expert and replace it with qualified. So you would have to find those occurrences of that word and replace it. So it's actually an individual task or a question that the student would have to do. So some tips for 2010 are, this is what we came up with, complete each instruction or task using the simplest method you know, because you're scored on the finished product, not the method you take to get to that product. Also, don't waste time if you don't know a question. Skip it. If you need to make sure that you're aware of your time. If you've never prepared your students for timed test taking, it's something that is really important with certification tests. So for the test, you have 50 minutes. So you've got to make sure that they're aware of the time the whole time they go along, but they don't sit there and concentrate on it. Remember to tell them that you need to reset if they don't, like let's say they start doing a question and they think they're doing it the wrong way. All they need to do is hit reset and attempt it again. You need to tell them to skip the question and take it to the end of the exam if they feel like they don't know that question because they're, moving along with the time. And if they finish a question and they think they did it right, they need to go ahead and hit next because next finalizes the answer and scores their question. Also, we always told our students to make sure that you watch for capitalization and spelling. On the test, words that students are supposed to type in are bold and underlined. And you want to make sure that your students know that when they type it in, they don't make that word bold and underlined on the actual test. That's just what Certiport, how it writes its tests out. So our students had a lot of questions about things like that. And if a student did do that incorrectly, they would get the question wrong. So things like that are really important when you take the test. Now, most of you have probably taken 2010 tests. Some of you I know have taken them with us, and It's really good to think back to when you took the test and things that you were confused about and things that, you think your students need to be aware of. And these are just some of the things that we thought they needed to be aware of. Also, when our students take tests, often, I would say in my classroom, a test would freeze. And the student would, kind of freak out a little bit. But you need to go ahead and tell them before the test starts, if your test freezes, just raise your hand, get me, and I will restart your machine, and it will take you back to the same exact place, and you will not lose any time. So it's good to tell them that before the test starts so that if it happens during the test, it won't kind of mess up what they're doing, mess up just them taking the test in general. This is just like a pretty way to say those things I just told you. Before the test, we always try to show this slide and say, let's go over all the things you need to know before you take the test. That's where you go over the test mode options like next, reset, and skip, and just kind of tell them about timing, but tell them not to focus on the timing, but to be aware of it and kind of go through those things with them before they take the test. A lot of our students get test anxiety or have test anxiety, and they get very nervous before a test, and I feel like if they know these things up front, it will help with that. Okay, let's look at 2013. I know there are a few people that are going to be taking Microsoft Office Specialist 2013 test. So 2013 is different from 2010 because it is project-based, and that means that the exam format is different than 2010. The whole certification test is a project, and you have to create it from scratch. So unlike 2010, where you're going to be completing independent tasks, 2013 are dependent tasks to create a document or a PowerPoint or spreadsheet or something like that. Now, why the change? They changed 2013 because they wanted, the people taking the test or the test takers to take the test in a way that more closely aligned to how you would use it every day, like in the workplace. So that's why they changed it. I think it's a good change, but to me, it made a little bit of a harder test. It also, if your students have already taken a 2010 test and now they're taking a 2013 test, they definitely have to know the differences because they are so different and because this one is project-based. And this is a sample of what 2013 looks like. Notice it's quite different from 2010. Tell you a little bit about it. So there are, these are the instructions in 2013. So to break it down, you can see an instructions tab, a references images tab, and for each individual task. And each individual task will have a description, location, and how to accomplish the task. So you can see the directions are much different for 2013. And here are just some helpful test-taking tips for 2013. Make sure that you show students, and we have uploaded this PowerPoint to the Microsoft IT Academy OneDrive and the Georgia file, but you're welcome to take these tips and show your students, like actually show them this slide right here of what the instructions look like. Make sure that that's clear to them. Help them become familiar with this format of a project-based test. Make sure you refer to the references window prior to beginning the completion of the task, because seeing the finished project may help you understand what the instruction is saying. That's something I really like about the 2013 test, is that it shows you the actual finished project. So to me, that would help me with the test, and I think it will help the students. And then always tell them to read the instructions carefully and do only what the instructions ask them to do. So and I think the most important thing is just remember to tell them the whole test is a project. So you're creating a project from scratch. So let's say, they happened to hit reset. Now in 2010, when you hit reset, it just starts over on that one question. When you hit reset in 2013, it will restart the entire project from scratch. So you need to make sure that they know that that's different. And you can only use the reset button with caution because it will reset the entire project test. So if they have done something incorrectly or feel that they should have done it a different way, they would need to use the undo feature instead of reset. And they also, just like if you were at work creating a project, they have to save their work often. Now, if the computer does go out during this exam and they haven't hit save, they're in trouble. Whereas the other test, it would go back to right where they left off. In this test, it can only be restarted from the most recent save point. So you want to make sure your students are hitting save often. So just some important things. I know most of you are about to start taking the test and in just a couple of days. So here are some things that we think are helpful for you. You know, before your students take the test, go through the MOAC book for whichever software application they're going to be taking and look at those certification ready boxes in the MOAC book. Make sure that you have taught your students those certification ready boxes. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, in each chapter of MOAC, you're going to find certification ready boxes. They're little black boxes, and they signal in each chapter where the specific certification objective is covered. So this is important to teachers and to students because it will most likely be on the certification exam. So some things you could do with those certification ready boxes, you could create a checklist for your students to make sure they knew all those certification ready skills. You could create cumulative reviews, and that's one thing we did, based on those certification ready skills. And after the students do the reviews, you could ask them to come up to the front of the class and give them a specific certification ready skill and say, can you show us how to do this, you know, to the rest of the class. So I felt like sometimes when we would call on our students and make them show the other students, they learned it a little better than if they were just sitting at their seat doing a cumulative review. So that's one good way to practice with your students. We have put the telephone etiquette cumulative review in either Webinar 6 or Webinar 7. That is one type of cumulative review that we created based on those certification ready boxes that you can use if you'd like to. It covers a lot of the certification ready boxes, and our students said it really helped them prepare for the, I believe it was the Word 2010 test. So if you're taking the Word 2010 test, great, take it, use it. If you're taking a different test, take it, the cumulative review, and just change it based on the certification ready boxes. Just modify it for your students. Also, it's really good to do timed reviews. So here's some things you could do with timed reviews to get your students used to that timed environment. You can take projects from the MOAC book. For example, like Lesson 7 of Word 2010. Go to the end of the chapter in MOAC of Chapter 7 and go ahead and print out directions for maybe the proficiency project, and then tape them face down, print out enough for all your students, tape that project face down on the desk, and then when they come in, tell them to pull up the data file that went along with it. And then when they're all at their desk, say, okay, flip over those directions, and whoever gets finished first will be the winner. I mean, it's up to you how you want to, if you want to give them candy or not do anything at all, but make it be a little competition. And as they work on it, have a timer in the front of the classroom that they can see that gives them a certain amount of time to do it. So the students really like that. They like the competition. And it gets them used to a time setting, kind of working under pressure. So that's a good way to do some timed reviews to get them ready for certification tests. There's also a backstage view scavenger hunt that we created that's either in Webinar 6 or 7 that you may want to use. We found that when our students were taking the certification test, there was a lot of questions over backstage view and that we didn't even know. So we created a backstage view scavenger hunt for the students to go over some of those skills like saving as a template and different things that are in backstage view. And then, of course, probably the most important, I think, thing is geometrics. So if your school doesn't have geometrics, go ahead and download that free 30-day download and have your students practicing geometrics before the test. Geometrics is, I think, fantastic in preparing students for the testing atmosphere as well as what the test looks like the timed environment, all of those things. So those are all different ways you can practice before the test, but you really just have to practice every day. Make sure that everyone is practicing. That's why it's good to call them up, you know, to get them to show the other students. And also just helping them understand what's on the test. So practice, practice, practice before the test. Now, also, when you're testing, when students start testing, there's a few things I wanted to tell you about that. You know, of course, the best way for you to understand what's on the test is for you to take the test. So that's always good if you take the test beforehand. But, you know, you're not always going to be able to do that. So when your students test, there's a few things I would like to tell you when they test. Okay, there's going to be a little dialogue box that comes up when they go to take the test, asking if they want to be entered into a national competition. Always have them say yes to that, because you never know who may be invited to the competition. So we always had our students say yes to that little box. And actually, one of our students was invited out and got to be in the national competition because he said yes. Also, when the certification test is over, the test is going to give you immediate feedback if the student passed or failed. So it's also going to give them a score report. So at our school, students would look at the score report, you know, if they passed or failed. You know, if they passed, they'd be really excited. It'd be, I think, a green check mark. And if they failed, it'd be a big red X. So they know immediately. But if they failed, you could look at their, I think it's called a score report. But we would have our students look at that score report to understand and plan remediation for the next test, because if you're going to let them test again, you want to do it pretty quickly. You want them to remediate and then retest again to try to pass that test. Now, we had like, I want to say, we had, you know, a bunch of students that did test again, but we had a cutoff point. You have to make a 700 on the test for students to pass. And I think if students were going to retest, we made them have at least a 600 on the first test if they were going to try to retest, you know, remediate from the report in geometrics and then retest again. So that's up to you if you want your students to retest. But I know that high schools in Georgia have Certiport site licenses, so you should have, I think, 500 lab licenses for your students to test. So it is a good idea, or it was a good idea for us, if the students didn't pass, to remediate them and retest them as soon as possible. So there are also, we found some great webinars on preparing for certification exam and using geometrics, and these are 2 webinars we wanted to give you just to have to go over if you're having a hard time preparing for the certification exams, or if you need more information on geometrics. And again, this PowerPoint is in the webinar folder in the Georgia state-specific folders under webinar 7. So we want to stop for just a second and see if anybody has any questions about test taking or how we prepare our students or anything like that that we can help you with before y'all get into this task of testing your students.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. I'm looking through the questions. It looks like we had a couple of technical issues with people not being able to see during the presentation. So I see, Kevin, that you're joining a colleague right now, so that's great. Sorry about those issues. I don't know why things like that happen, but they do sometimes. So hopefully, Kevin, you can see and hear what's going on. Do you guys have any questions at all about preparing for the test at all? Jennifer had some great tips there.
Let's give them a second, Melissa, just to write it in to see if they do.
Okay.
Are they able, Melissa, to unmute their mic?
Okay, so I see Ashley's question. I'm not really sure with this new webinar format. I'm not really sure about the mic, but I see Ashley's question. It says, how do you get the geometrics free 30-day trial? Jennifer, you might need to correct me on this, but if I remember correctly, our students just went to the geometrics website. There was just a place, like it was just there that said download for your free 30-day trial.
Yep, I can try at the end too, or even now, Ashley, to go. I think what I did is I just went to Google and typed in Geometrics and download, and then or to the Geometrics site, and it's got free 30-day on it. We actually had Geometrics on our computer, but when we went around the state and kind of talked to everybody about the IT Academy and testing and stuff, there were several schools that had to get the free 30-day trial, and there were several teachers who put it on their laptops to go ahead and practice before we did the test. So I had the address. I know I can find it. And Melissa, maybe while you're talking, I can go in and look for the exact download. But I'm pretty sure what I did is I just went to Google and typed in free 30-day download Geometrics. And it's a really super easy download.
Yeah, that's what I remember too. I just wanted to make sure we're telling them the right information. I'm not really sure what to do with it. If your computer freezes, I see a question there about what to do.
Yeah, that's what I did. It's Sevilla. She was in one of our classes. When it would go out, we would just actually, you would restart. If I remember right, Melissa, we restarted the computer, and then it would come back on, and you just go right back into the IQ system. They go right back into the same exam, and it pops up on the same question that they were on. Now, remember, in 2013, if they didn't save, they're going to have to go all the way back and restart the ones that they, from the last place that they saved. So if your students are taking the 2013 test, and from my knowledge and from my experience, the test does freeze. It happened, I want to say at least, one time per testing last year, Melissa? Don't you think per testing?
Yes.
So every time we tested.
I thought she was asking about what do you do if your computer freezes during the webinar. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. No big deal. But don't you remember it happening often?
Oh, yeah. I would say every time we tested a group of students in a classroom, at least I would say if only one was frozen, that was a small number. I want to say at least a few students' computers would freeze every time we tested a class.
And it's unfortunate because it really makes your students nervous. That's why it's so important before they take the test that you say, hey, it could freeze, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if it freezes. All we're going to do is take you right back in, and it'll take you where you left off. And again, if your students are taking the 2013 test, you want to say, but you need to make sure you save often, just like if you were at work, you don't want to lose all your, your project or your work that you've done, so you have to save often. But you just have to make them aware that it could happen, and it might happen. Even when we were going around the state and testing teachers, it would happen to teachers too. And, just as frustrating it is for a student, it's just that frustrating for a teacher. So it does happen, but thankfully it goes right back in. Let's see if there's any other questions, Melissa.
One question asked, how do you save? I don't really know anything about the 2013 test. I've never taken it. Jennifer, do you know about how to save?
Yeah, let me go back to my mouse is being weird. I'm going to go back to that slide. Let me close these questions out. You stay with them on the questions, Melissa.
Okay, I'll go with the other questions. Peggy's asking, we have Geometrics at school, but do you know if teachers have the option to download the 30-day free trial on personal laptops at home? Yes. You can download the teachers can absolutely download the 30-day free trial on their laptop or home computer at home and use it that way. That's what our students did, actually. We had Geometrics at school. We had it on our student and teacher computers, and then our students just wanted to practice on their own. They would go home, download the 30-day free trial at home, and then practice at home. All right, and then Peggy's also saying, at least one or two students have Geometrics freeze during each session, but we're using Word 2010, so it saves their work. Yes, I remember, I think I might remember Geometrics freezing occasionally. But, it wasn't ever that big of a deal to our students because they knew it was just Geometrics. But when it happens at the test, they always, kind of freak out about that one. But, yeah, you're right, Peggy. I do remember it freezing some.
Okay, let me talk about saving really quickly, Melissa. As far as saving in 2013, there is not in the instructions a place where you save. And if I remember correctly, you have to actually save it like you would save a document in a specific area that they tell you to save it. If you remember, in 2010, you would have to save it in a specific file folder, and I believe it's the same for 2013, that you have to save your work in a specific file folder that's called, it's called something that goes along with Certiport, or something that goes along with, like for geometrics, you have to save in the geometrics file folder, and it's something similar to that. There's a specific place they tell you to save it.
I'm looking to see if we've missed any questions.
Okay. I don't know where my questions went. I don't even see questions, so just tell me if you see any.
Yep, I think we got them all.
Okay. Well, I will get to the next part, and Melissa's going to talk to you. If you have more questions, you go right ahead and ask us, about taking the test. I think that we were pleasantly surprised with our students' ability to take the test and how well that they did, and I think you are going to be too. I always, as the teacher, remember getting nervous when my students were taking the test, more nervous than they were getting, but it's really exciting and proud when your students pass the test, or it makes you really proud and excited for them. And I think Melissa's going to talk to you about some of the things you want to do after you take the test with your students. So, Melissa, you want to talk about after the test?
Yes. Are you going to change me to presenter, or are you just going to click through for me?
I'll change it to you, because last time I clicked through, I didn't do a very good job. You think that's funny?
Oh. Okay. So Jennifer, can you see that?
I can.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and... All right. So I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about what you can do after the test. This is the fun part. This is the part where our kids are so excited. They're ready to celebrate, and we were ready to celebrate with them. And so I'm going to talk to you about a few things that you can do to make this fun for your students, and to really get a lot of people involved, like at your school and faculty and staff and that sort of thing. All right, so looks a little weird there. All right, so celebration. Celebrate your students' successes. We did a lot of things to celebrate with our students. We, for instance, put the information about our students on the school website that promoted their successes. We also, if your school has a school newspaper, it'd be great to put it in the school newspaper, but we also submitted stories about our students to the local newspaper, and they loved seeing their information, their pictures in the paper. Some of our students also were recognized at board meetings, and the reason why they were recognized is because we publicized it so much, and we sent it to our county personnel who are in charge of publicity and told them all about the success of our students. And so a couple of our students were actually recognized at board meetings, and so that was really fun and exciting for them and for their parents. And we always, always, always blew up the faculty and staff's email accounts. We would send emails constantly, just bragging on our students and bragging on what they did and what they were able to accomplish. And it really got the faculty and staff super excited about what we were doing, and it really got everyone on board. And so people would stop us and ask us about it. They would, when they saw those students in their classes, they would say things to them, and students would come back to us and tell us about it because they were so excited. Make the course important to your students as well. If you tie something to the certification, usually our students would get excited just because it was Microsoft certification and because their parents made a big deal about it, because they wanted to put it on their resume. But we also found that graduation cords were such a big deal. Now, we didn't actually give them a graduation cord for passing the test, but we did at the little party that we always threw for them at the end of the year. We would celebrate certifications, and we would also celebrate end of pathway completion, those students who had completed the pathway. and we would call them up at their little party. We did it in the cafeteria, actually, because we had so many students who were pathway completers and who earned certifications. But we would call them up. We would hand them their printed out certificates that we printed for them. We always went to the Certiport website, printed out the certificates for them on cardstock, and then we put them in a certificate holder for them. We would hand them those, and we would hand them their graduation cords in front of all of their friends, and they absolutely loved that. You could also actually do that at the honors banquet, or whatever your school calls it. We just had so many. I can't even remember the number now, but in excess of, I would say, 150 plus, that there was no way we could do that. We would take over the whole award ceremony, so we had to do it on our own. Also, display and recognize certification. There's a picture here of the wall outside my classroom from last year, and there was way more certificates than this. I just couldn't fit it in my camera. So what we did is we printed them their certificate that we gave to them, and it was printed on cardstock. But for these, I just printed it on plain old, copy paper. We laminated them, we hung them on the wall, and everyone could see that. And when the students loved it, they loved walking by and finding their certificate. They would point it out to their friends. We would see them, when we were outside in the hallway. So they loved that. The awards day, I just kind of talked to you about that. In some cases, we've heard teachers tell us that they like to give their student a balloon. If they pass certification, they give them a balloon. They walk around school all day holding the balloon. Now, I know that seems a little, I guess like for younger students, but your high school students in your classroom, and they love carrying around that balloon because everybody wants to ask them, what's the balloon for, or whatever. Now, I want to say towards the, maybe last year they told students they couldn't carry around balloons anymore at our school, but if you can do that, that would be something that you should consider. A certification party. A couple of times just with my individual classes, they asked me, can we just have a party in the classroom after we finish certification? I was like, sure, we'll have a certification party, and I let them bring in some snacks and food or whatever, and we just celebrated that we had taken the test and that, lots of students had passed. And then also recognition on the announcements. If you can have them say something over the announcements that they call over the intercom, or if you can have them put it in your, I know we had announcements that ran on the TVs at school, if you could do something like that, or put it on the school website. All of those things are great ways to help with your students as far as celebrating their success. Okay, so something else I want to point out to you is there's something that Certiport promotes, and it's called My Certiport Story. And we actually didn't even find out about this until towards the end of the school year last year. And we encouraged two of our students, Courtney and Reagan, to submit their stories about certification to My Certiport Story. And I think I linked it here. I did link it. I'm kind of scared to click on it because I think one time when I clicked on it, I couldn't get back in. But you'll have access to this PowerPoint later, and you can just click on it to go to My Certiport Story. But it's just a way for students to share their story about certification and what certification means to them, and just their story about preparing for the test. And it's just a celebration for becoming certified. So our students submitted their stories, and both of our students were chosen, Courtney and Reagan, to be featured on the My Certiport Story. And I just screenshotted their stories there and placed them here, and they were so excited, as were we, to see their stories featured on the Certiport website. So this could be something that you could encourage your students to do as well. And you'd be surprised. I'm pretty sure that someone would be chosen from your school to have their Certiport story featured. Okay, National Championship. The 2015 Microsoft Office Specialist U.S. National Championship is coming up very soon. It's the National Championship determines the World Championship qualification. So to participate, this is what needs to happen. Students must pass one of the following, but it has to be passed by May the 1st. So Microsoft Office Word, it could be 2013 or 2010. Excel 2013 and 10, and then PowerPoint 2013 or 2010. And so like Jennifer was saying earlier, there's that little box that you check that says that you want to be entered into the competition. Make sure that your students check that box because if they take the test and they do well on it and they do it in a short period of time, they could be chosen to come to the national championship. So top students from around the United States will be invited to compete in the 2015 National Championship, and this will take place in Orlando, Florida, June 18th through the 20th. And it is an all-expense paid trip. And I know when our student was chosen to go, he was so excited, and so were his parents. It was like a great little vacation. So encourage your students to check that box, and you never know, one of them might be chosen. So that leads us to the World Championship. So the Microsoft Office Specialist World Championship, basically what happens is during the National Championship, one winner per track will be named the U.S. National Champion for a total of 6 champions. And each will win an all-expense-paid trip to compete in the World Championship, which will be held in Dallas, Texas, August 9th through the 12th. And Jake, one of our students from a couple of years ago, he won the national championship, and so he got to go to the World Championship. And it's, once again, an all-expense-paid trip out there. The prize packages are unbelievable. I don't know if I'm going to, I might click on it just so I can show you. It's like thousands of dollars. Like when I saw it, I guess I had forgotten what the prizes were like. Okay, here we go. It says the prize packages are: the first place champion receives $7,500, a medal of achievement, and a certificate. Second place, $3,750 plus the medal of achievement and certificate. $1,500 medal of achievement and certificate. So that's for 2013. You'll notice that the 2010 prizes are a little bit smaller, but still, any prize that I would win, and I would absolutely love. So make sure you tell your students about that as well. And if you're interested about this and any of this national championship and world championship stuff, you can also contact Certiport, and I put the email here. You can send the email to them and ask them any specific questions that you have, and I'm sure that they can help you. Okay, so what do you do after your students have tested and they've obtained certification? Well, one thing that you can do is you can encourage your students to take additional, or you can encourage them to take additional tests. And so to prepare for that, you could have them take additional online learning courses and then use their learning to then seek additional certifications. Our students, both Reagan and Courtney, they really excelled with taking the tests, and they were always passing tests. And so at the end of the semester, when the rest of my students were, still preparing to take Excel or to take Excel Expert, or going back and trying to figure out those questions that they missed on the first test and practicing to retake, Courtney and Reagan both had already passed. And so it was like, well, what do I do now? So we decided that, and Reagan came to me one day and was like, can I just take the access test tomorrow? And I was like, well, I mean, you can try to take it, but don't be disappointed, And I had her just go on to online learning, look up some access modules in online learning, and take those on her own, because I couldn't really help her at that point. I couldn't teach her access on her own and then help everybody else with Excel. Well, she did that as well as Courtney. They did that. They also worked on Outlook. I guess that's it. But they both ended up taking, in the last couple of weeks of school, Access and Outlook, and then gaining their master certification level. And so this is something that you could tell your students. Okay, well, you've already got your certification. What do you want to do next? Why don't you try on your own and go into online learning and practice Outlook and see if you can pass it next time. You could also, if you have extra time at the end, maybe some of your students need remediation and they want to test again. Use that time after you've tested to do a little bit of remediation. You could point them to online learning and let them use online learning on their own, or you could go back and remediate yourself as a class. Look at the areas on their score report of what was the lowest as a class, and maybe go back in and reteach some of those things. Or you could also encourage some of your students, those ones that are top level, the high performers who have passed all of their certification tests, they don't need remediation, you really want to push them, you could push them for master level certification, like what we did with Reagan and Courtney. So when it comes to Office 2010, the master level certification means that you would pass Word 2010 Expert, Excel 2010 Expert, PowerPoint, and then choose one elective. And you'll notice this is a little different than it has been in the past. But the elective could be Access, Outlook, SharePoint, or OneNote. And that is how you achieve master level certification. Now, if you're looking into 2013 master level certification, it's a little bit different, okay? So if you're using 2013, this is going to be just a little bit different for you. there's 3 tracks that you can choose from. There's a Word track, an Excel, and then an expert level track. And you'll notice with the Word track, there's 3 requirements. There's a Word Expert Part 1 and a Part 2, which that's different from 2010. And then you must pass Excel 2013 and then choose one elective. Now with the Excel track, same thing. You have to pass Excel Expert Part 1 and Part 2. You must also pass a Word exam and then choose one elective. Now if you're really ambitious, there's always the expert level, and the expert level means you pass both parts of the Word Expert as well as the Excel Expert. And the good thing about that is that there is no elective required. So if your students are using 2013, they can kind of personalize this. So if they're really good at Word and not so great with Excel, hey, I would choose the Word track. So I think that is a good thing about the 2013 master level requirements. So I just wanted to throw that out there so you guys can see what all goes into obtaining master level certification and what a big deal it is if your students can reach that. Okay, so all this being said and all this talk about test taking, we also want to hear back from you. I've sent out a couple of emails over the last month with this information on it, but I want to just kind of explain to you guys what we're looking for. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear about your success stories. We want to hear about what your students have done, what they've been able to achieve. We want to see pictures. So email us your student success stories and pictures from this year with Microsoft IT Academy. It can be anything that you want to share with us and then also with other Georgia teachers. Please email that information to Jennifer, and I have her email listed here. Your email must be received by April the 30th, and I know for some of you you're still going to be testing at that point, but anything that you can share with us, we would love to hear it. We will help you celebrate by highlighting your students' successes during the next IT Academy webinar, and that will take place on May the 7th. And then we'll also use that information during Field of Dreams in June. I'll be presenting at Field of Dreams in June along with Ann Schreck from Certiport, and we would love to have some of your information to share and just kind of brag on you and your students as well. So please send that in to us. We'd love to hear from you.
And guys, we know how busy you are, but you've been with us the whole time during this webinar series, and we want to hear from you. We have developed personal relationships with almost all of you, and we want to know, how this has helped you, how it's helped your students. We want to know, it does not have to be like your student won the national championship or the world championship. Just tell us about a student that didn't seem interested at all, and then they received certification or any kind of success. We would love to hear from you. And we're really hoping that we'll hear from several of you as far as your student successes, because we do want to celebrate with you, and we want to tell the rest of the state how wonderful you are doing it and how wonderful your students did. So please do share with us. And we know it'll take just a minute, to email us and take a picture and send it to us, but we really do want to celebrate with you. Now, we're going to check questions. We want you to type in all questions you have about test taking, any questions you have about celebrating, any questions about the championships, anything you want to ask us. We want to take that right now. Now, Melissa, we had a question as far as, let me go up and see, which resource identifies all of the topics the students must know to prepare for the test. And it's in the back of the MOAC book, as well as, and I wrote it in there, but it's also in the exam resource mapping too. Should I open the MOAC book and show them where the certification ready boxes are? Let me know if you want me to do that. Type it into the question box if you want to know where the certification ready boxes are, and also where the skills are located in the appendix.
Do you already have the MOAC book downloaded to your computer?
I do.
Okay. If you have it downloaded, then sure, you could do that. Also, guys, we shared with you in a previous webinar information regarding that exam resource mapping document, and I want to say we might have even placed it in the folder for that particular webinar on the OneDrive, but the exam resource mapping document is on the IT Academy OneDrive, and there's a folder there, and both of those, the 2010 and 2013 exam resource mapping documents are there. You can also find it in the our webinar folder series for the state of Georgia in the IT Academy OneDrive.
Switch over to me real quick, Melissa, and I'm going to show them MOAC.
Okay. Hang on. Move this thing out of the way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's MOAC, and I think this is for Word. I had it saved on my computer, Word 2013. So in all of, here are the skills, here are the, where they are located in the, or what they are, the objective in the exam, and where you can find them in the chapter. So this is showing you what's on the exam right here, the exam objective. So this is at the very beginning of each chapter in MOAC. And then as you move through the MOAC chapter, let me just scoot down so I can show you what the certification ready boxes are if you've never seen them. There's one. That's just, this little black box is just pointing out, hey, this is something your students need to know for the certification test. It says, how would you turn on show hide? Now, obviously, the test is not going to ask the student, how will you turn on show hide, but they will have to demonstrate how to turn on the show hide button on the toolbar. So as you go through, you'll find some chapters have more certification ready boxes than others. You definitely want to spend more time on those chapters and on those certification ready boxes. See, there's another one. How do you save a document in a different file format? Obviously, that's in Backstage View, and it's something that they need to know, something I remember from the test. So you want to concentrate on those certification ready boxes. And at the beginning, and remember, of each lesson, you've got your exam objective for the test, and then where you can find it in the chapter. Now, if I will scroll down to the very end of the book, if I am able, I will show you in the appendix the different exam objectives. Might take me a minute. There it is, Appendix A. So you can see here's the skill, or I guess, yeah, here's the skill, the matrix skill. Here's the objective number, and there's the lesson that it's in, where you can find the skills for the test. Oops. There we go. And again, this is Word 2013, and it's like this in all of the MOAC books, from my knowledge, all the ones that I've ever used. So that could help you when preparing. I think probably one of the best things you could do, like I said before, is go through, look at the certification ready boxes, and create projects based on those certification ready boxes for your students. I know that takes some time, but I know that that is something that definitely helped our students, is practicing those certification ready skills, on, in real time on their computer, and then, calling them up front and saying, show me how you did that. Kind of puts them on the spot and makes them have to learn how to do it. When you say, I'm going to randomly call you up to show me that you know how to do this skill, I feel like that put them on the spot and made them learn how to do everything, every certification ready box, every certification ready skill, so that they could do it on the test. Do you want me to go, Melissa, I'm going to close that out. Here's the OneDrive. I could probably go and show them where the exam resource mapping right here. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to the OneDrive. This is the Microsoft IT Academy OneDrive. And I had gone, let me move this. If I remember correctly, I went to, is it IT Academy Welcome?
Yes.
Okay. And then you've got Getting Started with IT Academy. That's where I would say I spend like 90% of my time. Do you agree, Melissa?
Yes.
Okay. And then in the state-specific, no, well, you could go in there, but here's the ITA exam resource mapping. So I click on that, and you can see there's 2010 exam resource mapping, and here's 2013. And I'm going to click on it, and it's an Excel document, and it's going to share with you, like, let's say your students are taking Word. Here's the skill that's measured on the test, and then it shows you, let's say your students took the test, and they come out of the test and they say, Ms. Metcalf, I failed, or I had a low percentage in proofreading documents. So you'd say, okay, guys, this is what you need to do. You'd go look up which skill that they didn't do well in, and then you'd come over here. You'd see it's in Lesson 9 of MOAC. You would see, this little thing's in my way. Okay. You would see where you could find it within online learning and the lesson plans and the e-learning course and the e-learning module. So you will see 3 different areas where you can go and your students can remediate on that skill that they did not do well on the test if you're going to allow them to retest. Hopefully that made sense. Did we have any more questions, Melissa?
Yeah, one says, are they allowed to use, let me find it real quick, are shortcuts allowed in performing tasks? I'm assuming she's talking about keyboard shortcuts.
Right.
I think they are allowed, Jennifer, but does that factor in any way to their overall score, negatively or positively? I can't remember.
From my knowledge, shortcuts are allowed to be used as long as they get to the correct, I don't know what the word would be,
Ending.
I guess, the correct ending, but I told my students, because it tells you in the directions, it will tell you in the directions, it does not matter which way you get to to do the task, just as long as the task is correct and complete. So our students I do remember, use shortcuts. I think I actually used some shortcuts like copy paste, but yeah, I think that you can use them. I'm almost positive that you can use them.
Okay, and then one says, how many hours does it realistically take to prepare a student to take an exam? I mean, really it depends upon your class and your individual students. Some of my students did the full, like almost full semester of me teaching and them doing exercises on their own, and me pulling in a little bit of online learning and a little bit of remediation before they were able to test and pass. And then still with all of that, some of my students did not pass. And then there's students like Reagan and Courtney who spend a day or two looking over Access on online learning and just pass it, which I can't do as an adult. So it just really varies. Some teachers have said that they like to go ahead, if they have a site license, which we all do now, that they like to go ahead and just test immediately. Just kind of use that as like a post test, and then see where do I need to focus. So, it just really depends upon the students and the teacher and what they decide to do. Okay, now Ashley looks like downloaded. Okay. I'm just going to read what she says. Ashley says, I found it, but everybody be sure you download from the official Geometrics website. I didn't the first time and got all these extras that I'm now uninstalling. Well, that's good information, Ashley. Do you know if the computer needs to be thawed from deep freeze to properly install and for students to access? It's a lot of trouble, and I hate leaving the computers vulnerable. All the information for like downloading and using not only Geometrics, but Certiport, Console 8, and all that information is available to you through the Certiport website. There's actually a website that's specific to Certiport, Georgia, and I went through that. I believe it was in the last webinar, so maybe webinar number 6 on the OneDrive. And I went through the website and showed you guys some of that stuff. So if you have specific questions about installing, take a look at that. And you can also email Lori Troy or Ann Schreck, both from Certiport, and they can help you with that as well.
Hold on, Melissa. I do know that when you're putting the IQ system for the actual test, you do have to thaw the deep freeze. I'm not sure about Geometrics, but I know for the actual test for Certiport, the IQ system test, it had to be thawed. I remember somebody telling me that. But, also those links I gave for Geometrics and setting up your lab, they both talk about things. I'm not sure if they go over the deep freeze, but they talk about all of those things, any of those questions teachers would have as far as installing the IQ system and Geometrics, downloading Geometrics.
Now, I see another one. Can these exams get college credit? I'm not sure.
I mean, it's going to depend.
On the county and the school, right?
It depends on the county and the school if they have an articulation agreement with the college. I mean, there's a lot of different things that it depends on.
Okay.
It also says that I use weird shortcuts, been in technology for 35 years. I don't know. I would not use those shortcuts because I just don't know. I would rather tell you not to use those shortcuts and just use the different, tools on the screen on the window than tell you to use the shortcuts and you get the question wrong.
It's true. I mean, I feel like I probably use shortcuts just because I use them all the time in my daily life. I feel like I probably did use shortcuts, but like you said, Jennifer, just to be on the safe side, maybe just don't use them. Okay. Well, we know we kind of went over time here, but we'll wait for a little bit longer, too, and see if you guys have any other questions. Did we even finish the presentation there, Jennifer? Can you look through and see real quick?
I believe we did.
Just want to make sure we're not missing anything.
Okay. We finished. There's just resources on the end. Please remember about, well, first off, again, thanks everybody for coming. We do love being here with you, and we love helping you. We love helping the students. But if you have any questions, that's really where we want to help you. Just ask us, and if we know it, we'll try to figure it out. If not, we'll try to help you get it figured out. These are all the resources that we can go about helping you figure out your questions. Geometric support, there's a number you can call as far as geometrics if you need to figure out if the deep freeze needs to be thawed, or if you have questions like that, please call that number. If you have any problems as far as your computers, with the IQ system, call technical support. They've got a number right there. Also, any other questions that you have, hopefully these resources can help you get them answered if we were not able to. But I just wanted to reiterate, we really do want your success stories, so please take some time and just write a quick little blurb and let us know how it's going with testing in your students and what's happening in your classroom. I see we've got what percentage of your students pass. Well, it depended on the class, but it was all over a 90% pass rate, and several of our classes were a 98% pass rate. We don't like to tell that because I feel like we're bragging, but I guess it's okay to brag on our students if we're asked. So, because we want you to brag on your students. Right, Melissa?
Right.
Okay, we're going to wait one more second and see if anybody else has questions. And I know that a lot of you have many other things to do, so you're welcome to go if you don't have any more questions. There's one more webinar in May, and it's only in a couple of weeks. So get those success stories into us, and if you don't have any more questions, you're free to go. And we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Peggy. We saw that. We really appreciate you being here. I see another one. Do you start at the beginning of the year to prepare? Yes, we do. We start at the very beginning. We introduce students to, what this class is all about and how you can obtain certification. And actually, we hope to kind of go over beginning of the year stuff and what we do at the beginning of the year at the next webinar. So if you want to come to that one, we'll talk a little bit about that kind of thing in the May webinar.
Okay, the May webinar date, let me look at my calendar. I want to say it's May 7th. It is. It's May 7th at 4. So we hope to see you all then. All right, I guess that's it, y'all. May 7th at 4. Y'all have a wonderful day and get those students certified.